This is Small Changes in Teaching, Big Results in Learning by John Fanselow, presented by the TEFLology Podcast. Hello, and welcome to the second episode in the second series of extracts from John Fanselow's book. This episode comes from Chapter 8, Section 1, which is called Small Changes Resulting in Big Results. Enjoy.
William Blake was a poet and printmaker who lived between 1757 and 1827. Here's a quote from one of his poems. "He who would do good to another must do it in minute particulars. General good is the plea of the scoundrel, hypocrite, and flatterer. For art and science cannot exist but in minutely organized particulars." Minutely organized particulars. Almost all books about teaching discuss methods and activities in relationship to theories of learning or based on published research results. But such suggestions tend to be general. Like Blake, I believe we need to deal with details. Toyota is one of many corporations that also believes we need to deal with details, for two reasons. First, to see what we are doing in contrast to what we think we are doing, and second, to make small changes to try to improve our effectiveness. W. Edwards Deming, D-E-M-I-N-G, was among other things a consultant for Toyota. The present Toyota systems of production and quality control owe a great deal to the 14 points of management that Deming developed. One of the central themes is the need to note details of what everyone in the company does and then make small changes to try to improve what each person does. You can access Deming's 14 points in a heartbeat on the internet. This is one example Deming describes in order to illustrate the need to attend to details and make small changes. A manager decided that the people on the assembly line should produce 2 more cars per hour than they were currently completing. The workers said quality would suffer. After a few days, the people who picked up the debris that the janitor swept up every day noticed that the weight of the industrial waste was much heavier than before. With less time to insert and tighten the screws in the cars, more screws either fell out as the workers tried to insert them, or were inserted incorrectly and so fell out. In this case, as in many others Deming describes, it is attention to details by all participants that ensures quality control. The janitor, the people who picked up the waste, the workers. This example also shows that not all changes we make produce better results. Unfortunately, most experiments in all fields that are reported contain positive results. The changes that failed to produce better results are rarely published. Yet seeing changes that did not produce better results is at least as useful, if not more so, than only studying those that improve effectiveness. If a pharmaceutical company finds that a medicine they have been developing to prevent river blindness by killing the parasite that causes it is not effective, reporting these negative results would be useful to other companies who might have been developing the same medicine but were at an earlier stage of trying it out. When I call American Express, my credit card company, I hear this message. This call may be recorded. We're taking a fresh look at everything we do to serve you better. I find it amazing that American Express and other credit card companies, as well as banks, airlines, and other service industries, record conversations between clients and those who serve them to note small details of what clients and those they serve say. But we teachers do not. With all due respect to the various service industries, teaching is more complex and difficult to understand than a recorded conversation between two people, the client and those who serve them. We also teach usually from 5 to 40 or more clients in a class, not just one client, as in a phone call with an agent from a service company. The fact that so many manufacturers like Toyota and service companies like American Express think it is important to analyze the small details of what employees do and say, and yet not one school district or one provincial or prefectural board of education in the world follows this practice has mystified me for decades. The fact that so few of us who work with teachers advocates this practice has also mystified me. In theory, there is no difference between theory and practice. In practice, there is a difference between theory and practice. This was said by Yogi Berra, B-E-R-R-A, Yogi Berra. He was an American baseball legend. Economic theories and theories about language learning abound. In the past few decades, a group of economists began to question economic theories, just as I and others in our field have questioned theories about language learning by observing how people actually act. One economic theory was that people acted rationally in making decisions, say about such things as not wasting food. But when workers were observed in company cafeterias, observers noted that employees threw away as much as 50% of the food they had on their trays into the waste containers. When they were asked about wasting food, almost all of them said it was a bad thing to do, but they did it every day. One company substituted plates for trays. Perhaps not surprisingly, the amount of food that was wasted was cut in half. Another company, after a manager was asked to observe what workers tossed into the waste bin, saw that many emptied half of the food from their plate into the garbage. The person in charge of reducing waste had employees serve themselves rather than be served by cafeteria staff. The amount of waste was cut in half. Previously, all employees, no matter their size or appetites, had been given the same portions, but for many the portions were excessive. For a few, the portions had been inadequate. When people served themselves, they took what they needed. Some restaurants have buffet meals where customers serve themselves. The patrons can put as much as they want on their plates and can return to the buffet as many times as they want. Those who manage the restaurants have learned that even when people can eat as much as they want, they eat only as much as they normally do. Another economic theory claims that the more choices we have, the more satisfied we are. But when shoppers were actually observed buying jam in supermarkets, it turned out that when there were 25 brands, fewer people bought jam than when there were 5 brands. The energy it took to select from 25 was just too much for most shoppers. Teaching is much more complex than conversations between American Express agents and clients, buying jam, or selecting the amount of food we want to eat in a company cafeteria. One of the most frequent questions teachers ask me is how they can improve their teaching. I always say that the first step is to see precisely what you and your students are doing by recording and transcribing a 1 to 3 minute segment from the recording of a lesson. Then I suggest teachers make a small change like those I suggest in the other sections. I invite them to again record and transcribe and look as carefully as possible at what they and their students did. Finally, I suggest they compare the 2 transcriptions. But we have to do this over and over and over. This is not a popular response to the question, how can I improve my teaching? Why do I give this unpopular response? Well, because I think that the only way we can learn about what we do is to forget what others teach us. As John Dewey said, we need to learn from our experience. Each of us has to discover on our own new insights, the consequences of alternatives. This is a central theme of Walt Whitman's poem, Leaves of Grass, 1885. I tramp a perpetual journey. Come, listen all. I lead no man to a dinner table, library, exchange, but each man and each woman of you I lead upon a knoll, my left hand hooking you round the waist, my right hand pointing to landscapes of continents and the public road. Not I, nor anyone else can travel that road for you. You must travel it for yourself. Some alternatives will be less engaging than ones we use. Others that do result in what we wanted to happen will eventually become ineffective. A few will surprise us. So we have to constantly experiment, as Toyota and American Express and other companies do. In other areas such as medicine, the same continuous experimentation I advocate is done as a matter of course to enhance effectiveness. If small changes are not continuously tried to enhance medicines and create new medicines, diseases that seem to have been under control turn out not to be. The overuse of antibiotics in people and animals has made many of them ineffective. To cite another example, in the 1960s, chloroquine was used to prevent malaria and to treat those who contacted the disease. More recently, chloroquine has been much less effective in both preventing and treating malaria. In all areas of life, there is a phenomenon called regression to the mean. This technical term refers to the fact that all results of comparisons between different treatments, races, and chemical use, to cite 3 examples, tend to even out over time. A runner who breaks the world record will run closer to his average time during the next race. Medical treatments that initially achieve very positive results on the first trial usually do not have as positive results on the second trial. In many cases, even the probability that replications of experiments will achieve the same results is no better than chance. Fertilizers, insecticides, and pesticides become less and less effective after much usage. This is one reason why new products are constantly developed. Successful companies have large research departments. Without them, new products and new services cannot be developed. Consider just these few products we thought were perfect but have disappeared. The Walkman has been replaced by digital players. Many carbon batteries have been replaced by lithium. Burning wood to keep warm has been replaced by solar heat. Videotapes to DVDs to streaming. Phone signals sent via copper wire to glass fibers to wireless, and on and on. The purpose of all of the readings in this book can be summed up with these words by Jacob Bronowski, Bronowski, in Science and Human Values, 1956. The habit of testing, not testing students, and correcting the concept by its consequences in experience has been the spring within the movement of our civilization. In science and in art and in self-knowledge, we explore and move constantly by turning to the world of sense to ask, is this so? This is the habit of truth, always minute, yet always urgent. William Blake, Minute Particulars. Century ago, Bronowski, 1956. The habit of testing, not testing students, and correcting the concept by consequences in experience has been the spring within the movement of our civilization. In science and in art and in self-knowledge, we explore and move constantly by turning to the world of sense to ask, is this so? This is the habit of truth, always minute, yet always urgent. In some countries, students use erasers all the time, even when their teachers say that mistakes are okay, as the students are using their erasers. When I suggest to teachers that they have their students put their erasers in their pencil cases and correct their errors rather than erase them, they tell me their students keep erasing for at least a few days. They open their pencil cases the same way those who want to start smoking open their cigarette packages. When we ask students whether they have ever before been told to not use their erasers, they all say no. Most of the small changes I suggest are ones that students have never or rarely ever experienced. A central goal of these readings is to describe how you can see to what extent new activities are more effective than commonly experienced activities and produce surprises for you and your students. P.S. Determining to what extent small changes produce the desired outcomes is not as easy as I have suggested by my examples about cutting down food waste or improving cars or service or credit companies. In the case of quality control at automobile manufacturers, as you know, most companies that produce cars have to recall some of them and replace parts that are found to be faulty. Governments fine the companies and try to lay blame on the poor performance of engineers. The governments urge the companies to spend more money improving their engineering, just as some government agencies mandate more tests of students to improve teaching. Of course, faulty parts have to be re-engineered. This is one of the quality controls that Deming said was necessary. But the number of people who die in accidents due to faulty parts is extremely small in comparison with those who die from someone speeding. In order to save money, the U.S. state of Oregon reduced the number of state troopers who were responsible for, among other things, road safety. After the number of state troopers was reduced, the number of fatalities in Oregon was exponentially higher. Just in this one state, the number of fatalities was larger than fatalities caused by faulty parts in all the other states combined. The fatality rate in Western Europe is almost half that in the United States, due in large part to the use of security cameras, which automatically fine drivers who exceed the speed limit. So in all of our attempts to improve what we do, we need to look beyond the usual questions. In the area of teaching, there is often a narrow focus on testing alone to improve teaching. But if we do not use testing in conjunction with comparing the results of what we usually do with results after making a small change in our usual teaching, we are being caught in the same trap as those who focus only on faulty car parts without stopping to consider the role of speeding, the way roads are constructed, or lighting on streets when trying to reduce fatalities from car accidents.
Okay, we hope you enjoyed that. Just a reminder, as usual, that these extracts differ somewhat from the written version of the book, which is available as an ebook from Kindle and iBooks, and also as a hard copy on Amazon. You can also see some information about the book at the itdi.pro website. Okay, we'll be back soon with the third episode in this series. Goodbye.